So I am the co-founder and CEO of Valence Vibrations. We are an emotion AI company creating real-time emotional subtitles in virtual spaces, trying to improve emotional communication in all of the platforms that you're interacting online. We just launched an application called Vibes for Apple Watch, which is helping you better read the room and interpret emotions of people you're speaking with, and also better check in with your own emotions.
All right, this is another episode of the Founders Pack Form Your Own Pack podcast. My guest today is Chloe Duckworth from Valence Vibrations. How are you doing, Chloe?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm excited about what you're working on. So, I guess for people that don't know, who is Chloe and what is Valence Vibrations?
So I am the co-founder and CEO of Valence Vibrations. We are an emotion AI company creating real-time emotional subtitles in virtual spaces, trying to improve emotional communication in all of the platforms that you're interacting online. We just launched an application called Vibes for Apple Watch, which is helping you better read the room and interpret emotions of people you're speaking with, and also better check in with your own emotions. And it provides real-time feedback, both visually on the watch, as well as emotional vibrations or haptic feedback with a tap associated with each emotion.
So, super interesting concept. And I will share in a second kind of your site because I think it's actually a really good site. It will show, visual of what that is so far. But the one thing I'm trying to figure out is how does it help you read the room?
Mm-hmm. So essentially, our machine learning model is classifying emotions as people are speaking. So if you're ever in a conversation with someone and it's a bit difficult to interpret their emotions, perhaps there was an inflection point in the conversation where someone said something and everyone became upset. This will give you real-time feedback, understanding this is the exact thing that I said that upset everyone else in the room, because at that point, everyone else's emotions changed. And so it's providing that feedback on how people are feeling while you're speaking to them, as they're speaking and the conversation goes on, how emotions are changing, and also checking in with your own emotions and showing you how you are being expressed to other people.
So do we both have to have the application on in this case, this is through an iPhone watch, right? Or what do they call iWatch?
Apple Watch, yeah.
Apple Watch, sorry. You can tell I
So
don't
the
have one.
wearer, the wearer of the watch is the one that receives the feedback, so they can see their own emotions in those of the people they're speaking with. We're also creating web applications you'll be able to see on your screen, similar to a subtitle on a call or social media.
So if it's my um Apple Watch, how does it sense your emotion? Or is it
We're
just my reaction to you?
It's using tonal analysis. So it's
Hmm.
analyzing your voice as you're speaking, looking at the inflection points in your tone, and comparing that to the baseline demographic for that given geographic population. So we trained our machine learning models to capture the full diversity of American and Canadian race, age, gender, neurotype, and geolocation within those regions, and all of the tonal diversity within that group of people, so that we can then translate emotions across these diverse demographics.
So is it recording the conversation? Is that where
It's a temporary recording to
the
run through the
temporary
machine
recording?
learning
Okay.
model, but everything's running fully on edge. So there's no voice or emotion information that's ever leaving your Apple Watch or being sent to us or third parties.
Very interesting. I could see where there would be an application of like a plugin to something like Zoom or
Exactly.
WebEx or Google Meets, right?
Yep. Stay tuned later this year.
Well, I didn't even, I was just guessing, but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that makes a lot of sense though. And then what was the big problem that you noticed that, kind of motivated you to start this?
Sure. So within the neurodiversity community in particular, there's oftentimes a lot of stigma in the way that neurodivergent people, for example, autistic or ADHD people, might be communicating. And the reason for this is called double empathy. Within the autism community, we refer to this as the unique communication challenge that happens when you're speaking with someone of a different demographic than your own. So someone that has a different neurotype, maybe someone that isn't autistic, or someone that has a different accent than you, even gender and age differences. These all affect our ability to perceive the emotions of someone that we're speaking with, because we each have unique and distinct tonal baselines for how we're conveying anger. So I always use the example, if you're speaking with someone that has a Chinese accent and learned Mandarin as a first language, and you have a North American English accent, even if you're both speaking in English, your tonal inflection patterns to convey emotions are very differently. And so we're essentially trying to solve the emotional miscommunications that happen when you're speaking with someone outside of your in-group, to help people empathize across these diverse communities of people, and also to empower marginalized voices that are oftentimes having to mask their true methods of sort of interaction or communication so that they can fit into a particular communication standard. So oftentimes immigrants to America are forced to take accent reduction classes to literally sound more American. Within the autistic community, we call this masking. Within different racial communities, we call this code switching. And really, we're trying to honor the unique value of each person's voice.
I've heard code switching. That's funny. That's interesting. So yeah, because I think, that makes a lot of sense. So the feedback is haptic. So is it just kind of notifying you of of some sort of avergence in either your own reaction or the person that you're talking to? Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I think it would make sense to show the website
Oh
here too.
yeah.
You can
Sorry,
see
we
what
were going
that
to do
looks like.
that. I think that's a
Um,
great idea.
Yeah. So
Mm,
it shows a little animation. So each of the emotions, and we have 7
like,
basic emotions right now, it has its own color, sort of blob shape and animation, as well as haptic feedback associated with it. And then you can also see on the screen what the confidence percentage is for that particular emotion in the given point in time. So you can have a frame of reference for how confident we are that that person is truly angry with you in that situation.
interesting.
That's what it looks like. If you go on, I think the Vibes products page, it has more photos. Yeah,
Cool.
that's what it looks like. And so essentially it's analyzing your tonal patterns every couple of seconds and going back
Look
and
at
forth
this.
on a conversation. And these are the emotions that we can recognize.
Wow, that is really interesting. Scared to know what I would be 94% of the time. It might vary crazily. Super. And now, so you mentioned before you came out of an accelerator program, I think at USC. What was
Yes.
that experience like for you?
Yeah, so that was the MEPC competition at USC. That's how we got our start as a company. I was a USC student and co-founded the startup with a student I met in my freshman dorm. So the accelerator was a really interesting experience for us. It forced us to literally like get out of the room and start interviewing a ton of customers on a regular basis. Through that experience, we learned a ton about neurodiversity and emotional communication challenges, and also learned a lot about sort of the disconnect between academic research in autism and even industry behavioral intervention in autism and what the autistic community actually wants. A lot of the language that's used in these spaces surrounding autism is seen as offensive to autistic people, and a lot of the therapies that are being forced onto them are actually not helpful in the way that experts think that they are. So behavioral therapy, for example, is not something that the community as a whole supports in general anymore, in the same way that they are looking for accessibility and accommodations built into all the spaces that they're interacting in. The analogy that I like to use is that virtual spaces and physical spaces were built for specific types of people to interact in neurotypical ways. And so in order to make all of these spaces accessible, we need to consider all of the different ways that people might be interacting in those spaces and need accommodations. And so it's not that there's something inherently wrong with expressing emotions in a different way. It's just that that different way is not optimized for in the spaces that we're interacting online. And that's what we are trying to solve.
Very interesting. All right, if you could offer other founders only one piece of advice, what would that be?
So I would say, as like a young student founder, the most peaceful, the most useful piece of advice that I got was to build mentors early on. So I, early on in starting the company, reached out to probably like 50 people a month on LinkedIn, asking them about their entrepreneurial journey. Some were early investors, angel investors, others were within startup spaces, not always the founders, but just learning as much as I could from many different perspectives, people wearing many different hats about what it took to run a successful company and all of the skills that I needed to get up to speed on in order to start my company. And I continue to do so today. Being a venture-backed company, I'm constantly reaching out to other founders, asking for advice. So would definitely recommend that other founders do that too.
That's amazing. Along those lines, we usually ask people what the role of partnerships and or community has been in your success.
So I think community is paramount, especially in a very neurodiversity affirming company like ours. Really learning from the community and building with them was super helpful for us early on. Being in deep tech product, there was a ton of iteration that needed to happen before we could launch our first application. And so really building with community and asking them for feedback every step of the way was super helpful in building a product that was actually helpful to people and something that was optimized for what it means to be inclusive to them and their particular neurotype and demographic.
That's amazing to hear. What is next for you guys? Where are you guys going from here? What do we expect?
Yeah. So as I've mentioned earlier on the call, we did launch our Vibes for Apple Watch app back in December. We do have an iOS standalone app coming soon, as well as video conferencing and virtual platforms launching later this year. So you will see Vibes supported in different platforms and plugins in the near future. So stay tuned for that. Really, we want to revolutionize the way that people are interacting in virtual spaces with emotional subtitles as the next stage in accessible technology online. And so that's where we're going.
Super. All right. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who's a good contact for you? Who would you like to meet?
Sure. In terms of getting in touch with me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Chloe Duckworth, or even through our website. There's a direct contact link. My email is chloe@valencvibrations.com. So any of those ways work for me. In terms of new contacts, I have to think about this. I would say I would love to one day meet the founder of Zoom. That is a much larger scale contact, but
Well,
yeah,
that's
I'm definitely one.
interesting.
Yeah.
I think I might actually be able to connect you with someone that can do that. Let me ask
Wow,
him.
that would be incredible. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Dan Guido, who I just spent some time with, actually did the security for them
Oh, okay.
when they were, they changed the product, I guess, mostly over COVID. It was like
Yeah.
slammed. And so he kind of, his company Trail of Bits. I wonder if he could connect you. That I will ask Dan. Dan, if you're watching
Thank
this, which
you.
I'm not sure if you are,
That would be
we will
incredible.
connect you with Chloe, and maybe you can help connect her to the right people at Zoom. Chloe, thank you so much for spending time with me. The last thing is, when we have interesting people on the podcast, we like you to nominate another interesting person to be a future guest. We typically talk to either entrepreneurs that are founders of scalable ventures or investors in those types of companies. So, who would you like to nominate as a future guest of the podcast?
Would love to nominate my friend Vanessa Gill. She started Social Cipher, which is a social emotional learning video game platform for neurodivergent children, doing excellent work there. So would love to have her on the podcast as well.
And sorry, I missed the name.
Vanessa Gill, it's
Vanessa.
Social Cipher. Yeah.
Terrific. Vanessa, you've been nominated as a future guest. We will look for that introduction. Chloe, thank you so much for sharing what you've been working on, and we look forward to following the rest of your journey.
Thank you so much.